This first bit I'm going to say might seem random at first, but just stick with me, I am building to something. You may have seen a lot of reviews and think pieces popping up recently regarding Disney's remake of The Lion King. The movie which some people are referring to as the live-action version, because apparently everything's been redefined, and as long as it doesn't look like a cartoon, animation now counts as live-action for some reason. I personally am never going to call it the live-action version. Anyway, you've probably seen those, and most of them probably have not been good. Usually talking about how this new version was so committed to photorealistic animation for the animals that all the expression and vibrance of the original is completely lost. It looks dull, and the animals, perhaps worst of all, are completely unexpressive. Their faces are certainly structured in ways that are realistic and cannot move in ways that an animal's face cannot move, but that means there's nothing to communicate to the audience. It all has to be done through body language, which always kind of looks unnatural, and the voice acting, which really that's unfair to the voice actors to have to put that much pressure on them. The facial features are part of the way people connect to characters. It's especially vital for non-human characters that they have expressive faces, because that's how we connect with them. It goes a long way into how we read animals' emotions, sometimes incorrectly. But the fact that they didn't do that with this new version of The Lion King is a huge talking point, especially in how a lot of people are saying they shouldn't have done it. So along comes Genndy Tartakovsky to remind us all how it's done with 2D animation. Recently, some new footage from his upcoming prehistoric series PRIMAL made its way to San Diego Comic-Con, and it's some really impressive stuff. The clip on Adult Swim's official channel is just under a minute and a half long, so there isn't a whole lot here, and the scene is taken completely out of context. Yet for only a minute and a half, it tells us so much. And the reason I opened with that little preamble about The Lion King is because I especially want to focus on how the exaggerated style of this series did wonders for showing how expressive the dinosaurs can be. So full context, it starts off with the caveman character squaring off against a T-Rex and its two children. And these different dinosaurs, they have horns on their snouts, so they kind of look like ceratosauruses, but they're also way too big to be that species, so maybe they're a new species I just haven't heard of yet, or maybe they're completely made up. Doesn't matter. These newcomers come in and start attacking. The caveman sees this parent defending its children and suddenly decides he's going to take the T-Rex's side. Now, as you can tell, they're clearly not going for realism in regards to the dinosaur designs. I personally don't think that matters. I've said my piece on realistic dinosaurs in fiction elsewhere. But in animation specifically, particularly this animation, so much is done to get us to connect with the T-Rex and its little children. Okay, so no one really knows what dinosaurs look like. Barring a few unconfirmed sightings, we don't know. No one has seen a dinosaur alive. Assuming they are anything like modern-day reptiles and birds, it's safe to assume that their faces probably wouldn't be very expressive. Regardless of what species of bird or reptile you look at, their faces are pretty static. You cannot tell what they are thinking just by staring at their faces. You can't see it in their eyes, their mouths cannot smile or frown, their faces are completely static. You have to sort of read their body language, and even then, depending on the species, you're not going to get much information there either. Some reptiles, in fact, are built specifically to not have much body language. How do you think alligators and crocodiles hunt? They remain still enough that the prey thinks they're just logs until it's too late. This Primal clearly is not going for that. The T-Rex and its hatchlings have very expressive faces, and that's probably unrealistic. But for animation and for non-verbal visual storytelling, it works, and it works incredibly well. You really have to see the clip for yourself. I'm just showing you still images right here, but when you see it, you can tell. Like I said, it's completely unrealistic, but for this kind of non-verbal visual storytelling, it works. You can tell what the creatures are thinking from the raising of eyebrows or slight changes in the shape of the mouth. Things that T-Rexes probably could not do, but this T-Rex can do it, and that makes this T-Rex a character. It even works with contrasting characters. These are both theropod dinosaurs. Again, I'm not sure what species this one is, but similarly structured heads, as you can see from this shot. It would be very easy, if we were going for true realism and maybe even photorealism, to have them with the exact same expressions. But here you can tell there's a difference. They're both glaring at each other, but this guy is clearly glaring with evil intent, whereas this T-Rex here is glaring with an expression that says, "Get the heck away from me and my children." It's incredible how much you can read from just this shot, I mean. And those are just the reptiles. Our caveman here, whatever his name winds up being, I highly doubt Primal is his name. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. But still, as you can see, his expression is great too. He's able to get those exaggerated expressions as well because of the high stylization, but we're used to seeing that from human or humanoid faces. That it's in reptile faces as well really speaks to exactly what people have been getting at with The Lion King. That in animation, you need that exaggeration. You need that expressiveness, because that's the reason, that's the freedom that animation gives you. And to be clear, I'm not saying that this sort of thing can only be achieved with 2D animation. Of course not. I've seen plenty of examples that achieve this with 3D CGI animation, sort of like what The Lion King was going for, but taking the liberty to actually have the characters be expressive. The CGI animals in the Chronicles of Narnia, Aslan, the wolves, all those guys, in the first movie and all the sequels that they produced, they took liberties to make those faces expressive. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom with the Indoraptor, there are several shots in there where it's clearly got an expressive face, uncharacteristic of dinosaurs, but it made the Indoraptor memorable, if nothing else. And of course you can look to the Monsterverse. Godzilla, Kong, King Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan, they've got expressive faces. And they are realized with photorealistic CGI. They're not real animals, sure, but they still had that expressiveness. So I'm not saying that this sort of thing cannot be achieved with photorealistic CGI animation. What I'm saying is that you've got to have that sense of exaggeration. You've got to take a few liberties if you want your audience to really connect with the characters. And of course, the most recent example we can point to of how that can be done just happens to be 2D animation. Again, look at this shot. Look at the expression on the parents' face, on the hatchlings' faces, on the predators' faces. They're all different, and they all help us to connect with each of them. They help us to see who we should be rooting for and who we should be rooting against. Now, of course, beyond that, what do I think of the footage? Well, again, like I said, for a 1.5-minute long clip, there's some great nonverbal storytelling going on here. If you recall my original video, the one thing I was on the fence about, and I wanted to reserve judgment on until I'd seen more, was how this series was looking to be especially visceral in terms of its violence. Again, I've said my piece on that elsewhere. Check out the author's take on mature content video if you want to hear more. But the basic gist of it is that if you're gonna go for especially brutal violence in your story, it's gotta mean something, or else all you're doing is going for shock value, and shock eventually wears off. But if there's a reason for it, if there's substance to it, that's what will make a lasting impression. And help your story to really stand the test of time. From what I've seen of Primal, it's definitely going to be pretty gruesome. This isn't even the most gruesome shot in the clip, but it seems to be that it is going for a purpose. Again, taking into account that I have no context for this clip, and I have no idea what the rest of the show is going to be like, it seems to be building towards creating a world that is kill or be killed, as a primal landscape would be. And, of course, once again, character moment here. This is a parent, I don't know if it's the mother or the father, but it's a parent protecting its children. It is going to stop at nothing to eliminate the threat, and, well, see for yourself. At the moment, it seems as if Primal is on the right track. I don't know that for certain, but it seems to be a show that knows what it's doing, knows how to handle its content, knows how to tell a story in a non-traditional yet still understandable way, and it is definitely one I'm going to check out when it premieres. So, those are my thoughts on it anyway. And you're free to leave your thoughts on it and how the animation compares to The Lion King, since that's a major topic of this video, in the comments section down below. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it as well as subscribe to the channel for more content of a similar nature. Also, check the description for links to our Twitter, DeviantArt, and Patreon pages, as well as the Amazon link for the novel Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, penned by yours truly. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.